noticed out of the box, this is the most boring piece. It's just a green translucent plastic. But once you put batteries in it, it looks pretty cool. So there's different ways of doing so. You can see one pattern here, a flashing pattern, because of the board I used. I actually switched it because it was just too big to fit in there with the actual battery source. But let me tell you how to take it apart. You're gonna have to soak it for 10 minutes in hot boiling water. You can microwave it or you can put it on the stove. Regardless, you're gonna have to leave it in there for 10 minutes simply because this plastic and this glue is so tight that it takes a while to loosen it. Now once it's loose, with a very thin flathead screwdriver or with a dull blade, you can cut into that edge where it's glued and then very slowly pull it apart. Don't twist that screwdriver, you're likely to crack the plastic because it's soft. The same thing for this gun. You're gonna have to soak it for minimum 10 minutes in that extremely boiling water, or that hot water you may have microwaved for 5 minutes. Now initially, I thought I was going to have to cut the handle here because it just would not come apart. But I finally put it back in the water another 5 minutes and it finally came loose on one side. So it's actually glued on, holding these two pieces together. Let me show you. See that? And I almost cut that handle along the side to glue it later. I'm glad I didn't. So just be careful. Now, if you look even closer, you can see where the seam is. There's also here on the front of the turret. That's where we're going to drill with a drill bit all the way down through all 3 levels, actually 4 levels, right into the center of the cavity. Now this is the board that I used in the beginning of the video. This is a gun effects board by Light My Bricks, and I was thinking about putting it into the backpack, but I really ended up not doing so simply because I didn't want to run 4 wires around the figure and then 1 wire with the battery source. I wanted everything to be self-contained, and so I decided not to use that board. But if you put those wires in there and you hardwire it externally, it looks pretty cool. I decided to use this little battery pack that has 6 sources of lights that you can put in there, and it's got an on-off switch built right into the battery pack. It takes 3 button cells and it's perfect. It just fits in there snug. The only downside to this is you have to open the piece to get to that switch. Now if you're brave enough and you've got some soldering skills, you can solder off that switch and then hardwire it to the outside with some external or longer pieces of wire that you can solder, or just put a whole nother switch in there. But in any case, for my purpose, it's just for a few uses that I'll be doing so, for a few photos, so it's not going to matter. I'm going to leave it inside just the way it is, and I'm not going to glue this piece back together. I'm going to leave it just the way it is and snap it back in. Now if you wanted to, you could just add magnets to each side and glue them in there, and that way it just shuts closed tightly and you don't have to worry about adding glue. But as you can see here, this is the board that was initially in that first part of the video, and the gun effects board is pretty cool. I do like the way it looks, but I didn't like the way the sequence was, the way it was firing. It just really didn't have the effect that I wanted. Now for this to work, because I'll be switching out the board on the later part of the video for the flicker board, I'm gonna have to drill the turret all the way through with a drill bit, and then from the back on the inside, drill inside the gun. And then these mini LEDs, which are already pre-wired, I will then thread through and I will attach to only the front of the turret. I was thinking about lighting up the actual translucent gun itself, but that really isn't the main focus. It's the firing mechanism, so I wanted it on the outside. I really like the way this works, but once again, the battery doesn't fit inside with that board. Now if I just want the light to be on continuously, then I'll forget that board and leave what's already built into the little battery pack, which it looks okay, but I'm not into okay. I want it to look cool. Now, as you can see here, this gun effects board has a switch on it. You can select the mode that you want. I really do like that. In this case, it just didn't work for me. This is actually the same board that I used on Shriek in a prior video. If you want to see the full effect of that, that worked out awesome because the whole thing fits inside the figure. So make sure you take a look at that video and see how this board is used to its full potential. In this case, I went with another option. But you can see here that the translucent plastic really lends itself well to how this works. Now, if you really like this, then you can just put this inside the backpack and run wires on the outside. And if that's the way you want your figure to look with a hard wire on the outside, then you're set to go. But take a look here. This is how we're going to light it with this board. This board, and I've already done it for video purposes, here it is unglued here, is the flicker board, and it's wired into this battery with the 3 button cells and the board that's already built into it. Now take a look here. We're gonna have to drill through those 4 levels, and on the back or on the inside we'll drill from here to be able to add one of the lights here. So we're only going to light the front end as you saw in the video, and it is going to flicker as it is continuously firing. Now I've already drilled it out. I've already threaded one of the LEDs into it and then the second one on the inside. So there's 3. This board will only hold 3 lights. The 3rd light is going to be at the very bottom on the inside. So now we've got to glue this in and set it in place. Now these lights are green, but we're going to glue them in with the UV resin. Now this is the board that's inside, and I've shown this in another video. It's got 3 out ports for the lights, 1 in port for the power source. It is very, very small, which is perfect to fit inside this unit without taking up too much space. Now, as you saw in the earlier shot, I had to coil these wires because they were so long. These are the 30 centimeter wires. You want actually the 15 centimeter half of that because you don't want to have all of that wire in there. Unfortunately, I didn't have that size in this color, so I used what I have. Now, the next shot shows you the board that can handle more lights, and it's got the built-in on-off switch right into the batteries. If you wanted to, like I said, you could unsolder this tiny switch and put it on the outside, or have a whole different switch that you may want to use in particular. So in this case, I want to now secure the LED to the plastic, the translucent plastic, and I want to at least color match the UV resin that I want to use so that it doesn't look so obvious that I glued it in there. Many times the super glue can dry and make it a foggy look, and that just doesn't look very attractive. So in this case, I'm mixing in some translucent dyes, blue and yellow, to make green. And I'll just make the shade of green that I need so that I can at least closely color match that other plastic. Now the LED is already in green, so I don't have to change the color. But if you had to change the color of a white LED, this would be the way to do it. Mix the color you need, put it on top of the diode to change the actual color, and then cover the top with the clear resin to make it into a lens. In this case, I'm going to mix my clear UV resin with this dye to color match the plastic, and then I will then secure it to the sides or the area that I need, and then I'll cover it again with UV resin to make it a full cap. So you gotta work in layers. The thicker the layer is, the longer it takes to dry or cure. So if you work in thin layers, it's much quicker to cure it and then secure it properly. Now take your time when applying the UV resin. You want to only touch the areas that you want to glue. Do not spread it all over just because it's a clear UV. It will show up sloppy in your end product. So the cleaner and precise that you are, the better your end product is going to be. Now, because it is on a lower level, you see the edge of the plastic, you can always fill that in with the clear resin and then hit it with the UV light and even it out. it'll look really good. Now, if you're using a UV flashlight like the one I have, make sure you have fresh batteries so that the curing of that resin does not take too long. Otherwise, they're going to be there quite a while. So just take your time with it so that you end up with a good looking product. In the end, you're going to end up with something that is going to totally change the entire play value of that action figure. Now, once again, I did not glue this down because I want to get in and be able to shut off that power. If I actually needed to, I can then solder something on the outside. And for that, I'd have to get a soldering iron. At this point, I don't have one. I'm using what I've got. And for me, it works just fine. For you, you may want to go the other route. Now, this is a totally self-powered, self-sustained unit. I can take it from one figure to another, and I'm all set. Now, once it's fully dry, you're going to end up with something that looks like the next image. And it looks pretty cool. Even in broad daylight, it's bright enough that it is nice and it's able to change the play value of your action figure or wherever you put it with another action figure. As you can see, I didn't seal it. I'm going to put some magnets in there to pull it all together, and that way I can just take it apart whenever I need to and shut it off. I'm just going to use it for photography and for a few minutes that I have it on the shelf. And for me, that's fine. So I'm going to leave you with some video. I hope you like this small segment. It was really short. Give it a like, subscribe, and of course share it. And above all, don't forget to keep customizing.